Sentinel glided through the black expanse, its hull reflecting nebulae like rivers of fire. Commander Arik Vale stood on the command deck, staring at the holographic map projected before him. Faint red blips flickered at the edge of uncharted space, signals from the lost Ararat colony, humanity's missing descendants. "Coordinates locked," Marakeen said, fingers flying over the console. "They're just inside the edge of the origin system. I can't explain how the signals survived this long. They should have decayed centuries ago." Cassian Holt rubbed his temples. Long-range cryo signals paired with a self-sustaining cloaking field. They'd been hiding, but awake enough to respond when a human signature approached. Arik's jaw tightened. "Then we find them. They're the missing piece." The Sentinel accelerated, folding space to cross the light years in mere hours. Outside, the Warden fleet's nodes pulsed in coordination. Ships that had risen from dust and ice now aligned like guardians converging on their master. Every movement was deliberate, aware. The ancient intelligence that built them was stirring, and they had sensed Arik's presence. When the Sentinel dropped out of fold space, the lost colony came into view. Orbiting a shattered gray world, massive orbital shields glowed faintly with an iridescent blue, shielding the planet from sensors and prying eyes. Arik exhaled slowly. They survived, all this time. The colony was immense, artificial structures stretching above the surface like towering citadels. Bridges connected floating platforms, an energy field shimmered where the atmosphere was unstable. Ships of unknown design hovered in the docks, powered by fusion cores, centuries ahead of Erebus's technology. When the Sentinel dropped out of fold space, a smaller craft detached from the orbital array, moving deliberately toward them. The hull bore human markings, faded but unmistakable. The craft docked with the Sentinel. A hatch opened, and out stepped a woman whose bearing radiated authority and endurance. Elira Vance, leader of Ararat Colony. Her face was etched with age and hardship, but her eyes burned with a quiet fire. "Commander Vale," she said, voice steady yet wary. "I have waited a long time for this signal. We have not seen another human since the Dominion hunts. Why have you come?" Arik stepped forward, his tone firm. "We are not alone, Elira. The Wardens are awakening. And the Sentinel, it calls to you as well. Humanity's survival depends on uniting what remains." Elira's expression tightened. "I do not trust machines that remember our history better than we do. We survived by hiding. We survived by denying the past." "By hiding, you've allowed the galaxy to forget us," Arik countered. "The Dominion believes we are extinct. That illusion is dangerous. They will return. And the Wardens, they will not wait." Inside the Ararat command spire, Elira led Arik and Mara through the colony. Every corridor told a story of survival, murals of Earth, preserved records of lost civilizations, gardens hydroponic and lush despite the gray planet below. Children played under the watchful eyes of elders who never smiled fully, their faces bearing centuries of caution. "We thought we were alone," Elira said as they reached the council chamber. "Our people have survived by believing that humanity is extinct. We have hidden, waited, and watched the stars decay. And now, you wake the old weapons." Mara glanced at the holographic console projecting the Warden fleet's movements. "They're alive, and they're moving." Elira's gaze followed the map. "Then we have little time. You do not yet understand the prime intelligence. It is the mind behind the Wardens, the reason they exist. It was built to test humanity, not protect it. And now it has noticed us all." Cassian stepped closer. "Test humanity? Explain." Elira's eyes darkened. "The first human war ended because we destroyed ourselves with our own ambition. The prime intelligence was created as a safeguard, to ensure that no future humans could ever repeat that cataclysm. The Wardens are judgment incarnate. They awaken to determine whether we are fit to wield the power our ancestors left behind. Arak clenched his fists. Then the fleet doesn't belong to them. It belongs to us. It remembers humanity. Elira shook her head. It remembers the sins of humanity. It remembers the blood spilled across stars, and it will not hesitate to destroy those it deems unworthy. Elira led them to the deepest archives of Ararat, a vault buried within a crater at the planet's equator. Massive gates of alloy slid open to reveal chambers of ancient relics, starships, weapons, and armor older than recorded history. This is what we've protected for centuries, not to use lightly, not to awaken without reason. Each construct carries the knowledge of the First Empire, its victories, its failures, its horrors. The Sentinel is only the beginning. Arak moved through the vault, tracing the outlines of dormant ships. Then why did the Sentinel answer me? Why fight with us? Elira looked up, voice solemn. Because it detected you, not as a child of the past, but as the heirs of humanity. The Wardens obey those they recognize as true descendants, but recognition does not guarantee trust. Cassian's hands shook as he brushed against the console. The First War. If these weapons were ever misused, they could erase civilizations in a heartbeat. Elira nodded. And now the Prime Intelligence has awakened fully. It sees our combined colonies. It knows the Wardens are alive, and it is deciding, will we survive this reunion, or will it judge humanity as a threat once again? Outside, the orbital shields flared. Sensors picked up vast energy surges across the system. Red and crimson pulses radiated from distant points in the void, Wardens from long-forgotten worlds rising as one. Elira's voice cut through comms, sharp and urgent. They are converging. The fleet responds to the Prime Intelligence. If we do not act, the judgment will fall before we can plead our case. Arak nodded, resolve hardening. Then we do not plead. We show them that humanity deserves to survive. The Sentinel will lead the fleet. Together, we reclaim our legacy and confront whatever created the Wardens in the first place. Mara stepped beside him, eyes wide with both fear and excitement. You're talking about taking on something that has judged civilizations before us. Yes, Arak said softly, and if humanity is meant to exist, we'll prove it now. Above the lost world of Ararat, the Sentinel lifted once more, crimson light reflecting against the orbital shields. Across the void, distant nodes flared, ancient warships awakening, sensors locking, energy coalescing. And somewhere in the heart of the system, in a darkened void long untouched by life, the Prime Intelligence stirred. Its presence rippled through space like a tidal wave of thought, calculating, assessing, and remembering every action of mankind, past, present, and future. Descendants detected, it whispered, in a voice that resonated through the bones of the galaxy. Evaluation begins. Humanity is awake. Arak's hand rested on the Sentinel's control console, feeling the living pulse of the machine beneath him. His heart beat in sync with its own. This is it, he said steadily. The test begins, and we will not fail. The stars held their breath, and humanity's legacy, long buried, prepared to rise. The system stretched before them like a cathedral of light and shadow. Planets, long dead or shattered, circled a dim sun that barely cast a glow on the debris fields below. The Sentinel glided silently, its crimson hull reflecting the remnants of ancient orbital defenses. Ararat's orbital shields flared around the lost colony, pulsating faintly with blue light, blending with the Sentinel's crimson aura. Commander Arak Vale surveyed the system from the command deck. Every signal, every Warden node thrummed with life. The entire fleet was awake now. Dozens of warships, titanic constructs from eras before recorded memory, aligning in formation as if answering a call from the very heart of the galaxy. Cassian Holt's voice broke the tense silence. They're fully awake. The Prime Intelligence is observing and judging. Arak's jaw tightened. Then we show them why humanity still deserves the stars. The Sentinel led the fleet inward, weaving past shattered worlds and magnetic storms. Outside, the vast Warden fleet reflected the crimson light of the Sentinel in perfect harmony. Each warship moved with intent, not chaos, as though driven by a single mind. Marrakeen stood beside Arak, gripping the railing. This is insane. Look at them. They're alive, like they think. They are thinking, and they're listening. Cassian tapped the console rapidly. The Prime Intelligence is communicating, but not in any language I recognize. It's thought, pure thought. Arak focused, reaching toward the Sentinel's core. The ship responded, opening its neural interfaces, drawing him into a living network of memory, energy, and intent. Descendants detected. Intent unclear. Capacity for survival unproven. Exhibit worthiness or face containment. The voice echoed in his mind, neither hostile nor welcoming, but probing. The Prime Intelligence projected visions across the fleet, engulfing Arak in memory streams from human history. Earth's wars, the collapse of colonies, betrayals and heroism, images of humans fighting impossible odds, sacrificing themselves and creating beauty in the void flooded his senses. Arak's mind raced. They see everything, he whispered. Every mistake, every victory. They know what we've done and what we could become. Mara's voice, distant but steady, reminded him. Then we show them why we endure, Arak. Not as conquerors, as survivors, as creators. The Sentinel pulsed under his hands. Energy flowed into him, not merely mechanical, but emotional. Memories of those who came before, their courage and flaws merging with his own. Judgment requires demonstration of restraint, creativity, and courage. Execute or perish. Arak made his choice. He did not fire. He did not attack. Instead, the Sentinel spread a wave of energy through the fleet, linking each warden in synchronization. The warships hovered, scanning not with weapons, but with awareness. You offer proof of comprehension and collaboration, risk without annihilation, calculating potential. Even as the fleet aligned, Arak faced internal trials. Among the Ararak colony, old grudges surfaced. Some survivors feared Erebus humans would seize control. Tensions flared, threatening to ignite conflict at a moment when the entire Warden fleet watched. Elira Vance stepped forward, confronting her doubters. The test is not external. It is us. Humanity must unite to survive. If we betray each other now, the Wardens will judge us unfit. Commander Arak moved to mediate, holding both hands over the neural interface. The Sentinel responded to his intent, amplifying his focus across Ararat's communications. A synchronized signal spread, a collective demonstration of unity, coordination, and restraint. The Prime Intelligence observed. Its consciousness pulsed rhythmically across the network, ancient and vast. Unity demonstrated. Capacity for restraint acknowledged. Risk management accepted. Preparing final assessment. Arak pushed deeper into the Sentinel's interface, merging partially with its memory and the Warden fleet. He could feel the Prime Intelligence as an immense presence, a thought that spanned light years, older than the oldest stars, judging humanity not with malice, but with purpose. Images flashed, the first human war, fleets annihilating entire systems, cities incinerated by human ambition. Then flashes of courage, compassion, ingenuity, and sacrifice. Aric's voice echoed inside the interface, clear and firm. We are flawed, yes, but we endure. We create, we destroy, and we rebuild. We are not perfect, we never were, but we are the heirs of our ancestors, capable of growth, capable of restraint, capable of redemption. The Prime Intelligence paused. Its consciousness pulsed like a star about to ignite. Then, slowly, it spoke, its voice both everywhere and nowhere. Observation complete. Assessment. Survivors demonstrate capacity for restraint, coordination, and creativity. Capacity for evolution confirmed. Authorization, Warden Fleet alignment granted. Prime Directive adjusted. Supervision active, but judgment deferred. The Warden Fleet, previously tense and alien, shifted, warships forming new patterns of red and crimson light, now under shared synchronization with the Sentinel. Humanity had earned the fleet's allegiance. The vast Warden Fleet, once dormant and silent, now moved in concert. Energy surges flowed from the origin system outward, touching nodes across the galaxy. Aric watched as dormant sentinels on distant worlds responded, rising from their hiding places, flames of crimson and blue illuminating the darkness. Cassian whispered, awestruck, "It's the full fleet. Every ancient warship, every sentinel construct, answering." Mara's eyes were wide. "And they're ours?" "Yes," Aric said, gripping the console, "but not fully. They follow us because the Prime Intelligence has chosen to trust humanity, conditionally." Note: observation continues. Future actions will determine continued trust. Deviation may result in containment protocols. Aric exhaled slowly. Humanity had reclaimed its weapons, but the galaxy's judgment was ongoing. As the Sentinel and Ararat fleet prepared for departure from the origin system, Aric looked toward the stars. Worlds that had feared humanity now witnessed the rebirth of an empire, not an empire of conquest, but of survival and remembrance. Elira Vance joined him, her expression wary but hopeful. "You convinced them?" Aric shook his head slightly. "We didn't convince them. We proved ourselves. But the Prime Intelligence is still watching. Humanity has a chance, and we have to deserve it every day." Outside the command deck, the Warden Fleet glimmered against the void, titanic and alive. Ships older than history now waited for human command, linked to the Sentinel, ready to defend, explore, and guide. Cassian finally smiled, a mixture of awe and relief. "We have weapons older than the stars, and they're alive, and they remember us." Mara placed a hand on Aric's shoulder. "Then we fight differently now. We don't just survive, we lead, and we protect." Aric's gaze swept across the origin system. Beyond the wreckage, the dim light of the sun reflected on the reborn fleet. Humanity had awakened the Wardens, survived the Dominion, and confronted the judgment of its own legacy. But the galaxy was vast, and this was only the beginning. "Humanity has returned," the Prime Intelligence echoed across the fleet, "and its trial begins anew." The stars shone brighter that day, not from burning suns, but from the pulse of human will, echoing through constructs older than the oldest memory. Humanity was awake. Humanity had survived, and the Wardens now waited for its command.
The galaxy was quiet, and yet it trembled. The Warden Fleet, colossal and alive, stretched across light years, shimmering crimson and blue in coordinated formations. Human colonies, long forgotten or abandoned, flickered back into awareness as the Sentinel and Arabat fleet sent signals across the void. Humanity was returning, not as scattered survivors, but as a coordinated, unstoppable force. Commander Eric Vale stood on the bridge of the Sentinel, eyes scanning the galactic map. Nodes glimmered like stars, each representing a lost colony, a beacon of hope, or a potential threat. The Dominion, though shattered, still lingered in pockets, remnant warlords controlling isolated systems, unaware that humanity had returned with weapons older than the stars and minds ready to reclaim destiny. Narration adjusted the tactical display. The colonies are responding. Some are cooperative, others not so much. They're scared of the wardens. Eric nodded. Fear is understandable. The wardens are older than memory, alive with power humans barely comprehend. But they follow reason, not instinct. We must show them our intent is survival, unity, and growth, not domination. Cassian Holt added gravely, the Dominion remnants won't wait. They'll strike while we negotiate. If we hesitate, humanity's second chance could end before it begins. The first operation targeted Zyphira, a former Dominion stronghold, where a warlord named Coral Vex had seized control. His fleets were powerful, but uncoordinated, unaware that the Sentinel now commanded a synchronized force older than anything they had ever encountered. Eric instructed the Warden fleet to form concentric defensive and offensive rings around Zyphira. Dreadnoughts and energy warforms moved like living constructs, anticipating every Dominion maneuver before it even occurred. Mara directed precision strikes, disabling orbital weapon platforms without firing lethal rounds. The Wardens, understanding restraint and coordination, neutralized threats while preserving infrastructure. From orbit, Zyphira's inhabitants witnessed an unprecedented sight. Human ships controlling alien war machines of unimaginable scale, moving with precision, mercy, and intent. Panic turned to awe. Eric's voice resonated through the fleet comms. We do not destroy what can be saved. We liberate what has been taken. Today marks the rise of humanity, not as conquerors, but as custodians. The Dominion warlord tried to retaliate, deploying plasma strikes against the Sentinel's projection nodes. The Wardens absorbed the attacks, redirected energy to disable the Dominion fleet, and corralled surviving ships into containment patterns. In minutes, Zyphira was free, intact, and without mass casualties. Humanity had proven restraint, a key factor the Prime Intelligence had emphasized. Next, Eric coordinated the reawakening of human colonies scattered across the rim of known space. The Arabat fleet, combined with Erebus engineers, sent precise signals to each hidden world, awakening ancient defensive arrays and connecting dormant wardens. Some colonies welcomed them with tears, celebrating survivors who thought all humanity was gone. Others resisted, suspicious of the warden's authority. Mara led diplomatic contingents, explaining that the wardens were no longer jailers, but allies, instruments of protection under human guidance. On the desert world of Talvern, a former mining colony resisted alignment. Its leaders feared the warden's destructive potential. But Eric demonstrated restraint by ordering drones to neutralize automated defenses without harming civilians. By the end of the day, the colony had joined the fledgling human alliance. The demonstration of mercy, precision, and foresight impressed both the Prime Intelligence and the newly awakened wardens. Not all threats came from the Dominion. Within the human coalition, tensions flared. Some Arabat factions distrusted Erebus survivors, fearing centralized control over the Warden fleet. Old grudges and centuries of isolation threatened unity. Elira Vance confronted dissenters in the Arabat Council chamber. The Prime Intelligence watches. It sees division as weakness. If we cannot act as one, humanity's second chance will end before it begins. Eric added, "We survived extinction once. We do not survive again by fighting each other. The Warden fleet responds to unity. Our strength is in collaboration." Mara Keene and Cassian Holt worked to mediate disputes, broadcasting demonstrations of coordinated maneuvers with the Sentinel and Arabat fleet. Slowly, suspicion turned to awe, and grudges dissolved in the face of overwhelming evidence that humanity's resurgence was both deliberate and controlled. Even as the colonies realigned and the Warden fleet moved in harmony, Dominion remnants launched desperate strikes. A massive fleet under Coral Vex attempted a surprise attack near the Valen Rift, a chaotic nebula that had shielded them for centuries. Arik and Mara anticipated the assault. The Warden fleet responded instantly, forming a living lattice of energy and armor, cutting off enemy movement and neutralizing weapons systems with precision strikes. The battle was cinematic, red and blue energy arcing across the void, Dominion dreadnoughts exploding in silent arcs of light, Warden forms moving as extensions of human thought, preserving life while dismantling threats. Arik focused through the Sentinel, sending commands with intent rather than aggression. The Prime Intelligence observed, its consciousness rippling through the neural networks of every Warden ship. Humanity was proving it could wield ancient power with wisdom. Within minutes, the Dominion remnants were neutralized. Surviving ships surrendered. The first decisive blow had been struck. Humanity's resurgence was no longer myth, it was reality. The victory at Valen Rift sent ripples through the galaxy. Colonies previously isolated or in hiding began coordinating under Arik and Elira's leadership. Communication networks revived, linking human worlds for the first time in centuries. The Warden fleet, synchronized across systems, became a guardian, not a weapon of oppression. From the bridge of the Sentinel, Arik gazed at the combined fleet of Arabat, Erebus, and awakened Wardens, Mara beside him. His voice quiet but firm. "We did it. Humanity rises." Elira added, "Not just survived, but guided. We have power older than stars and the wisdom to wield it responsibly." Yet even in victory, Arik knew this was only the beginning. The Prime Intelligence remained vigilant, reminding humanity that the galaxy would always test them. Mistakes could still lead to judgment, betrayal could still arise, and ambition unchecked could again bring disaster. But for the first time in centuries, humanity was awake. Not scattered, not extinct, not merely surviving. They were alive, united, and capable of shaping the future of the stars. Across the void, far beyond known space, dormant human constructs stirred. Ancient fleets that predated the Dominion awaited signals. The galaxy itself seemed to pulse with expectation. The Prime Intelligence had granted conditional trust, but observation would continue. Humanity had proven its worth, but the trial, the true test of restraint, wisdom, and unity, would continue for generations. The stars shimmered in silent witness. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never forget.
The galaxy was alive with light and motion. Where once only the cold emptiness of space stretched beyond Erebus Prime, now human colonies glimmered like constellations of life, connected through networks of thought, energy, and will. The Warden fleet patrolled, explored, and protected, its immense forms glinting in the void, responsive to humanity, yet autonomous in judgment. Commander Eric Vale stood on the bridge of the Sentinel, eyes tracing the movements of distant nodes. Each pulse, each energy signature was a heartbeat of the new human age. Beside him, Mara Keen adjusted the fleet's alignment. Every colony is communicating. Every warden node is synchronized. For the first time, humanity is one across the stars. Cassian Holt, ever the pragmatic engineer, shook his head in awe. And yet, this is just the beginning. There are systems we've never seen, civilizations we've never encountered, and threats that won't wait for us to be ready. Eric exhaled slowly. We survived extinction. We survived dominion. We survived the judgment of the Prime Intelligence. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The first priority was restoration. Worlds long abandoned, mined to ruin or scarred by Dominion warlords, were now being repaired. Engineers from Erebus and Ararat coordinated reconstruction, while the Warden fleet maintained defensive perimeters and ensured no remnants of Dominion aggression remained. On Talvern, Mara oversaw the repair of ancient orbital defenses and the revival of agricultural systems. Children born after centuries of isolation marveled at the Warden warforms, which now functioned as tutors, protectors, and builders, rather than instruments of war. Elira Vance began documenting the era, creating a living record of humanity's resurgence. We must remember what we endured, the history of survival, of mistakes, of courage, every lesson preserved for those who follow. Eric walked among the engineers, speaking to survivors, sharing moments of hope, laughter, and sorrow. Everywhere he went, the legacy of the Warden fleet was visible. Ancient constructs, now allies, moving with purpose, their energy reflecting the pulse of human will. Even in triumph, loss remained. Many had died during the battles for Zyphira, Valen Rift, and the reclamation of lost colonies. Names etched into memorials glimmered on stations and cities, etched with energy that shone in the dark of space. Eric stood before one such memorial, his hand resting on a panel inscribed with the names of the fallen. Mara joined him silently. "They did this for us, so we could rise." Eric nodded, eyes reflecting the pulse of the Warden fleet overhead. "And we honor them not by mourning alone, but by living fully, by proving that humanity's return was worth the cost." The Sentinel hummed beneath his feet, alive with the memories of those who had fought and fallen. Each pulse carried recognition of sacrifice, and in return, a promise: humanity's endurance would continue. Not all colonies embraced humanity's resurgence immediately. Some mistrusted the Warden fleet, fearing the power of constructs older than the stars. Others, traumatized by centuries of isolation, doubted that unity could endure. Eric, Elira, and Mara traveled between systems, demonstrating the fleet's capabilities without threat, mediating disputes, and encouraging collaboration. Every decision, every demonstration of restraint and wisdom further proved humanity's worthiness to the Prime Intelligence. Cassian oversaw the integration of Ararat and Erebus technologies, combining centuries of knowledge into a system capable of predicting cosmic hazards, interstellar threats, and even rogue Warden behaviors. Humanity was no longer merely surviving. It was planning, anticipating, and growing. Even as humanity flourished, the Prime Intelligence remained vigilant. Its presence no longer intruded directly, but pulses of thought, guidance, and subtle warnings traveled through the neural networks of the Warden fleet. Humanity had earned conditional trust, but continued oversight remained necessary. Arak often reflected on the warnings: restraint, wisdom, collaboration, and humility. It's not enough to wield power. We must live up to it every day. Every choice matters. Mara, standing beside him on the Sentinel's observation deck, nodded. And we will. We've survived the worst the galaxy could throw at us. We won't fail now. The Warden fleet pulsed in unison, responding as if acknowledging the statement. Across the void, dormant human constructs, relics of a forgotten empire, stirred at last. Humanity has returned. The Prime Intelligence's thought echoed faintly through the neural network, and its legacy begins anew. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter. Humanity's children would inherit not just survival, but responsibility. And the galaxy would remember the day forgotten humans returned, armed with weapons older than the stars, and hearts that refused to die.